I'd like to introduce our first guest. Tina Yu is a Chinese-raised, New York-based sculptor and artist. After developing an interest in sculpting in college, she decided to pursue her passion after getting a BFA degree in graphic design from Pratt Institute, drawing inspiration from movies, animals, nature, Chinese culture, family, childhood memories, and imaginations. Tina brings her imaginary characters to life through sculpting. Her biggest dream is to make her fantasy world become a movie or series. Hi, Tina. Thanks for joining us. I don't think we're hearing you at just a moment, but look at your cool sculptures right there.
I know.
There you are. Hi.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Thanks for coming through. I love your work. I'm such a fan, and I'm glad you're here today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's get right into it. So you joined Pull Up as a creator partner. You recently launched Nita, a collectible sculpture line, which you've never done before. And we helped you produce a VIP event in New York City for your patrons and fans in April. Also, congrats for almost selling out that collection, by the way. Are you dreaming up another collectible in the future?
Yes, definitely. Well, by the way, it's not selling out yet. I know it's like sold out on my website, but I just want to make it clear. We're just focusing on shipping out pre-orders.
Oh,
So
got it.
that's why it's sold out, but it will come back in stock soon. But yes, I'm definitely going to launch more collectibles, even though it's been really tough because this is definitely something I've never done before. And it's like kind of like tapping into the whole marketing, like business and like mass production, like manufacturing stuff. So we definitely learned a lot from the past experience. So hopefully in the future, I want Nita to be like a long exist character that can inspire and motivate people.
We lost you. Having a little technical difficulties. Thanks, y'all. We'll bring Tina back on as soon as we can. Thanks for your patience. All right, Tina's back. Pew, 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 pew. There you are. You want to pick up where we left off?
Oh, I don't know why. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you great. See you
Okay, cool.
great. Hear you great. You're doing great.
Cool. Okay, so where did I left off? What were I talking about?
You were talking about Nita being a long-term collectible that you'd like to keep bringing back.
Yes, so I would love to have her in different color, different poses. So it's kind of like I want people to know more about Nita, like people can recognize Nita in the future and then learn about me, like, rather than like people know me first and then Nita. So I want Nita to be like more, get some recognition from the world. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to highlight another. Go ahead.
No,
I,
I'm done.
You're good, good. I want to highlight another pull-up collaboration where you, on your Patreon, you launched a 2-month sculpting class for 20 students at a much higher tier, and which felt like it was such a risk, but it paid off, and you filled all the spots in like 2 hours. Can you share with us what you learned from that experience, in particular, how you plan to do it differently next time?
That was something new I've never done before. I was really nervous that not a lot of people would sign up, but it was sold out so quick. And for that class, I was also offering like sculpting and painting kit with all the same materials I was using as supplies. But what I learned is that most people, after it was sold out, a lot of people asked me to reopen the tier again because they just want to learn rather they like I got someone asked me, so like, I just want to learn the classics, I don't even want the sculpting and painting kit. I was like, oh my god, that's so nice. It's really definitely a like confidence booster for me, like knowing that there's people out there want to learn from me. And because I never like consider myself as a professional sculptor since I learned it myself. But yeah, that's definitely something I learned, and next time if I do it differently, I would kind of just offer like the classes by itself
Mm.
on a cheaper tier so more people can join.
Yeah, that seems like a really excellent idea. I look forward to seeing what happens and you being able to introduce that back to your Patreon.
Yeah.
So Thank you for sharing a little bit about yourself and and being able to introduce yourself and your craft and your Patreon. We're going to bring up our next guest and get to know them too. But don't worry, we'll have you back later for the roundtable discussion with all of our guests today. So let's take a look at our next creator. We're going to be playing a clip. And also, don't forget, if you have a question,
is my cue to go in with the sauce and the noodles, and it'll help deglaze everything. I want to make sure I scrape any stuck bits on the bottom. Give this a good mix. So all the oil, the garlic, the flavor from the herbs are all over the noodles. I know the sauce is pooling at the bottom. Do not worry. It will all get worked in. And now, close. Turn the heat to as low as it could possibly go. It's my cue to go in with the sauce and the noodles, and it'll help deglaze.
awesome. Thanks for that clip. Hi, Pailin. We're
Hello,
so
hello.
lucky. Hi. We're so lucky to have you here. Can you tell our audience who may not already know you what you do and who you are?
So I am a YouTube creator. I'm a chef by training, but I stopped cooking in real life and started cooking online and teaching people how to make Thai food at home. I've been doing it for 12 years now, and I live in Vancouver, Canada.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Mhm.
So I wanted to just highlight some stuff that you have a successful following on YouTube. You authored a cookbook. You had your own cooking show on TV, which was, by the way, your childhood dream. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Cooking is like a lifelong passion for you, and you share that passionately with your community. Can you share with us what makes you good at teaching?
I feel like ever since I was little, I've always had a knack for explaining things in a way that people can really understand them. And I think when it comes to a foreign cuisine such as Thai food, people come into it feeling really intimidated. Um, but the feedback that I've gotten from people is that the way I explain it make it seem simple and straightforward, and making it relatable as opposed to something that's like, oh, this is something I can never do. So I think that's probably what makes my show sort of resonate with a lot of people.
Awesome.
Mhm.
I was going to bring a quote in that you shared with me before this event. That you said that it's never just about giving a recipe. The point is more about why we do a thing and how to be a better cook at the end of the day. And I love that.
Yeah, because recipes are a dime a dozen these days. You can find
Yeah,
recipes,
totally.
anywhere for just about anything. But just because you have a recipe, it doesn't mean that you can actually make it successfully. If you don't have a basic understanding of why you do what you do, then when things go wrong, you don't know how to fix it. And a lot of times the environment in which you're recreating a recipe is different from the environment that recipe was created, right? Your kitchen is different, your fire is different. And so not understanding the basics of cooking and you're just blindly following a recipe, that's when people screw up a recipe and they don't know why.
Yeah, totally. Well, I'm glad that you are here and you're sharing your wealth of knowledge. Also, in the chat, if you check it out, there's a link to your cookbook if people are
Oh,
interested
wow.
to be able to learn those foundations of Thai cooking specifically.
Yeah.
Well, we invited you here because you have so much to share with the pull-up community, and I wanted to talk about how, like, you started Hot Thai Kitchen in 2009 as a hobby and hoping to build a portfolio to host your own cooking show on TV one day, and then in 2012 you decided to give it a serious go with more
Mhm.
time, better equipment, and having Adam as your camera person. Can you tell us what your secret sauce is in growing your audience? Inquiring minds want to know.
Um, there's no secret sauce, but the one thing the one thing that I did that sort of grew the show significantly was being consistent. From 2009 to 2012, I did it basically whenever I had time, whenever, and time was not always available, right? So it often just like got pushed to the back burner. But when I did it, it was fun. But in 2012, I had gathered a small following, but I started to get a sense that this was something that had legs. This was something that there was interest in it. And I thought, okay, what if I do this frequently? So I started posting every 2 weeks. And with that one change alone, I saw the following grow so much faster, just because I feel like people now realize that this is a regular thing that they can expect more from, as opposed to a video that they don't know, when else, when's the next one going to come. And it also makes it look like this is a serious endeavor. And people want to follow somebody who's serious, right? Because that means they're focused on producing something that's good quality. So if there was one advice I can give, that is, be consistent. It could be once a month, it could be once a week, whatever is sustainable. But if you're consistent, then people respect that.
Yeah, I think that's a great takeaway. And I'm checking out the chat, and that I think Alyssa, I don't know how to say her name. Consistency keeps coming up when people talking about why they succeeded. So thank you for sharing that knowledge for all of us here. And thank you so much for sharing. That's just a little taste of talking to you. And then again, we'll bring up our next guest, and you'll come back to the roundtable discussion with everyone else. But thank you so much for this. All right, next we're gonna meet our next creator, Zoe Hong. We're so thrilled to have you here. Can you tell the audience who may not already know you, who you are and what you do?
Hey, party people. My name is Zoe Hong, and I bring 20 years industry experience and 6 years university teaching. And I teach fashion design, illustration, and industry best practices on YouTube, on TV, at schools, and on Patreon.
Amazing. Awesome. Yeah, similar to Pailin, you've always had a knack for teaching too, whether it was teaching other kids English while growing up in an immigrant community in Alaska or being a peer tutor in college. I know that like alleviating barriers to education is something you're like deeply committed to, and you are phenomenal at it. And that's like really what you're giving to this world. Can you share more about why giving back that knowledge is important to you?
Yeah, as you said, the barrier to enter the fashion industry right now is money, because fashion schools all over the world, but especially in the US, are just ridiculously expensive, like $50,000 a year expensive. And sometimes, students find out that after they spend all this money, that's not what they want to do. And a lot of those first, out of school internships or summer internships are unpaid. And so those slots can only be taken by students who have financial support from home, who have parents who are paying the rent while they're working for free all day long. And, money doesn't buy talent or passion or drive.
100, yeah.
And so, it's just not fair. And right now, many of you probably already can figure this out, but the fashion industry is extremely problematic and wasteful. We have a lot of issues that we need to solve, and it's not going to be solved by just perpetuating and help succeeding like the same people with the same mindset. We need fresh blood, bigger brains, different brains. And, you have to give everyone an opportunity to get in there and get their voices heard. And so it is important to me that I offer free or lower than $50,000 a year, definitely.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Options to explore if this is a field for them, and to continue their education and figure out where they can find themselves in the industry.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all that. I'm so glad that it's so important to you and you do it so well. I also want to just shout out that I understand that your students give back to you too. How do they inspire you as a teacher?
Okay, this is going to sound a little obnoxious, but if teachers are not learning from their students, they're just not doing it right.
I agree. Yeah.
Because it's not, people think that teachers, it's like an output system. It's not. It's always a conversation. And that's like the number one thing I miss about university teaching, is having constant conversations with my students. And so, I've been teaching on YouTube. I read every comment. I haven't hired someone to read all my comments for me. I read all my comments and I answer as many as I can, because it helps me improve as a teacher. I am writing a fashion design workbook. And so I created an outline, and I use that outline to create my Patreon class. But then as I'm teaching the Patreon class, and as I'm talking to my students in there, and we have a Discord, and so we get to talk a lot, and then I'm learning how I can make my book better, how I can teach the next round better, because if as a teacher, you're getting the same questions over and over again, you taught that thing wrong. and you have to figure out how to do it again, how to do it better the next time. And
Yeah,
so you should always be receptive to that.
that's a great call out in terms of like if you're asking the same questions, it means that you're going to teach it right. So I appreciate that accountability and also commitment to your craft.
It's humbling, but we all need it.
Oh, absolutely. We all make mistakes. We're human, right?
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks for giving us a little bit of a hint of just you and your Patreon and your YouTube and stuff like that, and I really appreciate it. I can't wait to hear more from you later. When we bring you back the roundtable discussion, and we'll just like go to our next guest and get to know them too. So thank you, Zoe. So our last guest is Heavy Pleasure. If you joined us before the event started, you may have heard some like hot tracks from Heavy Pleasure, who will be sharing wisdom with us and is also our official sound ambassador today. Aloha, Kakao. How are you doing? I think maybe your audio is not working because you were doing
Am
the
I on
DJing
now?
earlier. Oh, here you go. There you go. Hey.
Aloha. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm glad you're here too. I'm going to tell the audience a little bit about yourself. You are a Kanaka Hawaii, offering part of a long legacy of diasporic and indigenous genius that is in the underground, firmly rooted in the past, present, future, and routed through sound. Working from Ahupua'a in the Kingdom of Hawaii, they have organized, curated, and contributed to community spaces and experiences in Duwamish homelands, Seattle, Vilbanca, New Orleans, Tongva, Los Angeles, Lenape, Hawking, New York, and Yelamu in San Francisco. Let's take a look of some examples of spaces you've made Heavy Pleasure. We're going to play a video. Stay tuned. Awesome. Love that. Oh God, I love that track so much. It makes me so happy.
It's a good track.
I love your life.
It's a tiny tidbit. That's the last. It was like people were starting to cough, and if COVID was like, it was the last gig I played. Like a week later, the shutdown happened. So
well, I'm glad we got to get a little bit of glimmer what that life is like. So I'm actually gonna bring that up. You started your Patreon when the pandemic started. Like many creators in nightlife, your life changed dramatically. I know you're proud of what you've done and what you've been able to accomplish in the past 2 years, and I know you also want to grow your membership while continuing to give back. Can you share with us your future goals of your Patreon? I really want to make sure that people heard this, because I think it's really great.
Yeah. For me, like organizing and creative work is not separate from like community and lifting each other up. Like this has been a vehicle for me. And so my goal is I would like to make a livable wage, especially as an Indigenous person, right? Especially as an Indigenous person who's like in the education system, trying to reclaim some cultural knowledge that has been like, we're like reawakening things where a lot of us didn't have access as Hawaiians to a lot of our cultural knowledge. So I'm like, I'm back in college now, working on a degree in Hawaiian studies, and I'm like, let me not struggle while I'm also like doing this like heavy lifting work of getting
absolutely.
So my goal is I would like to have a livable wage of like a chill $4,000 a month, and I would like to move my Patreon to not just my own personal engagement, but I would like to continue, as I have been, utilizing that platform to uplift others. So my goal is to make enough to donate $1,000. Not even donate. Let me scratch that word. I want to highlight another artist, particularly Black and Indigenous artists and projects, and kind of create an archived interview that allows us to like learn about somebody else, and then I can just give somebody like $1,000. And if I can just do that every month, that would just feel really good to me.
I love that as the spirit of your work. It's like amazing. It's also like the spirit of pull up is that like you literally like, I want to do my thing and have people support me, but also that uplift other people's with you. And I think that's really amazing that you also want to like highlight other creators. And that's something you did in your night when you're organizing spaces and also like doing nightlife stuff is you would highlight other organizations and raise funds and stuff like that. So I think that's pretty amazing. Um, and I just wanted to like before we close out and go to the roundtable discussion, I just want to make a point that like pull up is simultaneously about learning and giving back to the next ones up, and this is 100% what you're all about, and that it's such an important a part of your ethos as a creator, and I just love that like you use the power of music and be able to reinforce your like where's your mouth at mentality. So thank you for that and all those blessings. All right. Speaking of community, let's bring it back, all our guests, and let's get into it. So let's welcome back Tina and Pailin and Zoe. Round of applause. Woo, woo, woo! Now we're all together. We got a little bit of know about each other, and like now we go to some more deeper questions. All right. So hi everyone.
Hello.
I want to start us off with hello. I love your radio voice. It's so good. The multiple people in the chat are like, you should have a radio show.
I think that was Zoe.
You already have a YouTube show, so yeah. Well, speaking of you, Zoe, I wanted to start off with something that you shared with me is that you've been told that people have told you that you don't have the pedigree for the that mirrors the incredible knowledge and experience expertise that you have, but because you haven't worked with like flashy names, those big jobs and opportunities aren't accessible. So you're motivated to build your own pedigree by having one of the largest fashion education channels out there, and you're doing a wonderful job of that. And I just want to bring it to the group as creators of color. We often have to find ourselves carving our own paths. I'd love to know how the rest of you have done the same.
I can jump in first.
Yeah, let's go.
When I first started the YouTube channel, being a YouTuber wasn't quite a thing yet that you could do. And so the only way one could have a cooking show was to have it on TV. And so right. I naively think that if I started a cooking show on YouTube, one day somebody is going to discover me and say, wow, she's great. Let's give her a TV show. Little did I know that the Food Network has no interest in putting a Thai person on their show. I had no idea that my race would work so hard against me in that dream. And this is not to say that, the Food Network just doesn't know about you or whatever. Like, I have spoken to a casting director from the Food Network who was actively looking for new talent, and she personally was looking for talent, more diverse talent, and I never heard back. And until this day, you've never seen real Thai food on the Food Network or any of that because it doesn't feed the mainstream appetite or whatever the reason is, right? So if it wasn't for YouTube, who knows what I would have done by now. But I think the online platform really allows people of color who are being kept out of the mainstream to have their own thing, to build their own empire, however big it may be, and to prove that there is an appetite for their creation, right? That just because the big networks and the big magazines didn't put you on there doesn't mean that people don't want to see you. And I think all of us here have proven that.
100%. Thank you for sharing that story. Go ahead.
No, that's it. Yeah.
Anyone else want to go off on that or share something else?
I just want to yes and really quickly because I was on a TV show, and I am fairly positive I wouldn't have gotten it if the casting director wasn't an Asian woman herself. And she told me herself that she fought for me because my two co-hosts were white guys. Just saying, just throwing that out there.
Just saying.
Yeah.
I think that for me, there's like a few different intersections in which I come from. Obviously, like we're all here, people of color, and also as a trans queer person, um, I've found that, like, especially in DJ, in music, it's very dominated by cis men. And for me, which I think that a lot of marginalized people have this experience of, like, you just have to be really good at what you do, right? Where it's like, because you can show, like, it could be some, like, whatever dude doing the most basic thing, and they'll give him they'll people will book him and do this and do that, and you'll show up and it'll just be like, assume that you're not even the, like, talent, assume that you have nothing to contribute, and then you get these weird, like, backhanded compliments after you're done of, like, oh, that was like it's a surprise, you know what I mean? So, like, I think for myself, like, when I think about carving my own path, there's this, like, dualistic thing happening where I'm like, I'm in a continuum of, like, ancestors, whether that's, like, genealogically or, like, my like trans and queer ancestors. So, like, I'm never alone, and everything's been like, we're, like, reproducing all of these ideas that have existed forever, and also we just, like, do come into we interface with these, like, really harsh realities of current society, which, to me, I'm like, I just have to continue to try to, like, hold my center and be good at what I do.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Tina, do you want to go for it? Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with, like, the surprise that people, wow, you're really good. Because looking at me, people wouldn't expect me to make, like, sculptures. Like, so every time I tell people, like, I'm an artist, and they're like, oh, cool. And they're like, what do you make? I was like, I make sculptures. And I'm like, fun. And then they see what I make. I was like, oh, wow. Like, you make, like serious sculptures. So I was like, what are you expecting? Like, little figurines and stuff. So I definitely get that too whenever I tell people, like, introduce myself to people. But I want to, like, go over more of, like, kind of like how tough it is, like, starting as a freelance artist, and you have to kind of have that battle with your own family, because like, growing up in a traditional Asian family, they expect you to have more, like, the stable job, and it took me, like, a while to kind of convince, like, my parents and my family members that I'm doing something serious, because in their mind, like, as a freelance artist is not, like, a serious career. And I think it definitely took me a year or two until I don't hear that from them at all. It's like the first year I still hear, like, oh, when are you gonna get, like a designer job, like an office job, like 401k, your retirement plan. I was like, I'm 22, I'm not thinking about my retirement plan. So, like, I think that definitely, like, just prove yourself to like, your background, like, your culture, and how to, like, like, stay true to what you're passionate about, and also, like, respect their opinion. Like, you don't want to be, like, so, like, like, in Asian culture, we respect the elderly people, so you want to show them respect while pursuing your passion. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for that. That's actually a really great segue into my next question. Last week, Heavy Pleasure shared with me that the cultural root for creativity for Hawaiians was that, like, there's a cultural root for creativity for Hawaiians, that before colonization, Hawaiians were, like, really efficient at getting work done. They love exchange, new ideas, and excellence. And I love that you use that word to describe that. And because of this, like, Hawaiians had, like, more time to work on crafts, play music, and be in places of water. So I'm really curious, for everyone else, or you can add more about, like, how being Hawaiian or Asian has impacted your creativity.
Yeah, I mean, I can start on that. I feel like in the food world, being an Asian gives you a bit of an advantage. Just in a sense that I feel like in Asian cuisines it's so rich and it's so diverse, and we eat so many more things, and and our culinary techniques are so, like, there's just so many things that I think would surprise, like when I moved here. So I moved here when I was already an adult. I was 19. And so I had like a good life living in Thailand and then experiencing here. So I kind of have a good comparison. And and there are a lot of things that Asian people do in the food world that surprise people here. They're like, oh, you do that? You eat that and all that. And I think that's to our advantage because it's almost like you're painting with more colors, right? When you're creating, you have so much more to draw from. And in Asia, they really embrace the Western food as well. So it's not so I feel like I've seen a lot more than, for example, like if people who have never been to Asia go to Asia, they'll be shocked by the number of different foods available. Whereas the reverse is not quite the same, right? The Western food that's available here, well, there's usually an equivalent of that in Asia in some form or another. So I think it's an advantage for people working in food, and I think I have to remind myself to really draw upon that sometimes. It's like, okay, what is unique to us? What can I pull? What can I present? And that's a part of teaching too, is recognize what is normal to me but may not be normal to the audience, and really pointing that out and making a point to talk about it. Because if I don't catch that this is not normal to the audience, I glance over it and people are like, whoa, 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 you just said that, you just did that, but like that's really weird, I've never seen that before. So and so I think it's been an advantage for me.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
I think that, well, I'm Korean, and my family immigrated to the States when I was 4. And my family, even for Korean standards, are very conservative and old fashioned. And I just always grew up kind of analyzing the Korean way of doing things and the American way of doing things. And I think just, in your like lizard brain, way back, you just always think there's always a different way to do things. Like, you don't just get like, this is the default and this is just how you do it. And so if I don't like something, I'll like, if I don't like my dad's, well, this is how Korean girls are, then I'll figure out a different way to be. Like, it was always, I'm going to figure out a different way. There's always a different option. And I think that's just implanted in my subconscious now, to just always like, well, this isn't working. Peace out. I'm going to figure out a different way. And so it's an indirect way where I was open to having these options and not just, because I think if you come from kind of like one culture, like even just Koreans back in Korea, they're so like, what is the word I'm looking for? Monolithic. They're all Koreans over there. Like, there's like no minorities. So they only think of like, they're all like, they all look the same. They all eat the same. It's all good food, but they eat the same food. There's like the one way of thinking about things. And honestly, that has done really good things for them about like how their economy has grown since the Korean War, all those things, nationalism as at its finest. But immigrants, like kids like my age and that generation growing up, it's like, I'll take a little column A and a little column B and I'll figure it out. So I think it's just the background.
I love that. Have you pleasured? You wanted to pipe in?
Yeah, I think that I guess it really like links to when you first asked me a question earlier. Like, I feel like a thing about being Hawaiian is like the lahui, the like bigger collective. Like we're, I think when you're in a small island area, you have to think about your impact, and like you're gonna come into contact with similar, a small network of people. And so it's like, I feel like there's this ingrained thing of like, how is this impacting the greater, more extended communities? How is this, and because Hawaiians, you know, we almost suffered extinction through colonization. Like for many generations, the energy is like, how do we rebuild? How do we, um, you know, what are you doing to strengthen not only yourself but like your ohana, your family, your people? Like there's because it's been dire, you know. And so I think for me, I'm like, okay, when I think about doing a thing, I'm like, who can I bring on board? Who's being left out? How is this, you know? And for me, I've done a lot of, you know, I'm from Hawaii, and I recently moved back home, but I spent a lot of time on the continent. Um, and so a lot of my community was like queer and trans community, and which is just like, and so many of us are really marginalized in many different ways. And so for me, it's, you know, it was very natural to like have this progression of being Hawaiian, then also being queer and trans, to still thinking about like what does my community need? How can I be of service? What's lacking? You know, things like that. So yeah.
Love that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Tina, you want to come through? We'll do the next question.
I feel like for me, a lot of my sculpture artwork is inspired by my childhood. Like Pailin, I came here when I was 18, so I already have kind of like a, you know, I have a background that I'm pretty like secure with my culture, even though I went through like the phase that you want to fit in. So I tried not to like, you know, like speak Chinese or at all. Oh, by the way, I'm Chinese. Yeah, but the older I get, the more I kind of miss like my childhood growing up in China. So, and also like all the colors, like the rich culture, the background, the history, especially like I gravitate towards a lot of like those ancient like garment accessories, like those like patterns and colors and how they use them, and like to um I love those like dramas like inspired by the Tang Dynasty or the Qing Dynasty, like how different concubine wear different colors. I know it's like way too far, but I just love the colors in the history. And I often like find inspiration from that. And I do feel like it's like a big part of my work and how what drawn people to my work. So I do feel like that part of my culture like kind of like give me a little benefit as an artist, because I have way more inspiration compared to other artists. I'll say I can like really dig back into like my background, my culture, and the art and history. Yeah.
Love that. Thanks, everyone. That is great. I love this. It feels really nice, like hanging out with all of you and all the other people watching us. I just want to remind everyone that I'm going to ask one more question, but after that, we're going to do a Q&A. And don't forget to add your questions to Q&A and upvote them so we can see what's the most popular to be able to ask those questions for these awesome creators. So I guess I'm going to pick here's my last question for y'all. That kind of relates to what we talked about just right before, is that Pailin shared that with me, that like having a Patreon fills her cup, and knowing that people are paying their hard-earned money to support her as a creator is like everything. I just want to ask each of you, how has your patrons and community positively impacted each of you? How's it changed, inspired, or motivated you?
I can start on that since that was my thing. Like I feel like my Patreon community is almost like part of my family. It really affects me in a way that I don't think it's so hard to describe, the fulfillment, the satisfaction, the gratitude that you feel when you see one more person joining your Patreon. Because like even if it's like $1, what that's saying is this person loves your work and wants to see you succeed, right? And wants to see you do well. Like they want, like, and they can get all your stuff for free, but they want to like pay because they really love and believe in what you're doing. Or some people will have shared with me that I have positively impacted their lives through my work, and they feel the need to give back. They feel the need to thank me in some concrete way, and it fills their cup to give back. So I think it's such a great platform that allows that to happen, this exchange of value to happen. And I think, even like I have a tier for just $1, and and they don't really get a perk or anything aside from being able to message me and things like that. And I appreciate them just as much, because it's like, if they're giving $1, it probably means that they don't have much to give, and the fact that they're giving at all really, like, it really fills my cup.
Thank you so much. There's a lot of people in the chat like really loving your words, and I also acknowledge that we're running towards the end of this roundtable time. So if anyone else wants to answer briefly, that would be great, and then we'll move on to Q&A with everyone.
I just want to say I agree with everything you said.
Cool, ditto.
I see like my patrons as my family too, because they've been with me since like when I first started my art career. So they're the OG.
Heavy pleasure, Zoe. You want to say anything? Otherwise, we'll go to Q&A.
We can. Whatever I have to say takes too long, so let's go to Q&A.
Okay, all right, awesome. Well, we can talk about later in the chat and Discord if you want. So, all right, we're gonna start with we're transition to Q&A. All right, I'm gonna make my screen bigger so I can read these questions. All right, what's one thing you would tell your younger self if you could go back to when you first decided to be a creator? That's a great question.
Start. Just do it.
Just do it. Yeah.
I wrote a book about it. Okay, like just start. Like a group of entrepreneurs, we each wrote a chapter in a book, and one of the things was like, this is a common question, like, what would you tell your past self, your younger self? And I'm always like, just start. I procrastinated for 6 months pretending I was doing research when really I was just too scared to start. Just start.
I think it's amazing advice.
It's fine. And if you don't believe me, I want you to go see some like big beauty vloggers who have like 10 million, 2 million, whatever subscribers, and try to go find their oldest video. And some of them, they still have their first video up, and it is terrible. Terrible. The lighting is terrible. You can barely hear them. They're in some like yellow, dimly lit, like, in those movies where it looks like they're in like a drug den motel room that's about to get shot up. They're in a bathroom like that, trying to show us different shades of lipstick on their wrist. Like, they're terrible. But if they can grow their channel, so can you. Just start already.
Amazing. Love that. Also, just know in the chat, I want to know what that book was, if you don't mind putting it in there, letting people know about that book.
Oh, yeah, sure. I will find a link for it.
Anyone else want to answer that last question? Otherwise, we'll go to the next one.
I want to answer.
Yeah, let's go, Tina.
I would say just like, it doesn't hurt to try. Like, if you don't try, you'll never know. Like, that's why I told myself, because when school, I majored in graphic design. At the same time, all my friends were getting graphic design internship or already have a job. But I'm the only one that's like going completely the different way and have no saving, like no secure income at all. But I wasn't like so sure if it would work out, but I did give myself 1 year to see if it would go somewhere. And I feel like if I don't do it now, I will never know. And it doesn't hurt to try. So I feel like you should always have that mentality that, just try it. It doesn't hurt to try.
Just do it. Just try it.
If you failed, at least you tried. That's what I told myself. 1 year.
I have a very dorky catchphrase that I say with my students all the time. It is, hashtag if your first one sucks, you're right on track, because you've already separated yourself from all the people who just talk the talk and never ever do anything about it. Like your
Yeah.
first one is always gonna suck. Maybe not like objectively, but relative to where you can be, it's gonna suck. It's gonna be terrible. It doesn't matter because you did the thing. You already did the worst part, and so you just keep going now. You just keep going.
Yes.
Love that. All right. We'll go on the next question. What is the best business investment you've made recently? In terms of all these aspiring creators, helping them out, thinking about what they should invest in.
For me,
Right.
it's renting. Sorry. It's renting the studio that I'm sitting in right now.
Awesome.
For a long time, I worked out of my house. It's not a house, it's an apartment. Worked out of my 1-bedroom apartment, out of a tiny kitchen, and I was borrowing my friend's apartment to film in. Like I couldn't even film in my own kitchen; it was so small. And finally, like when COVID hit, it was no longer feasible. Like I have my husband working at home, I have a toddler at home, and I had literally a corner of a living room, and it was just impossible. And I finally decided, and it was a very difficult period of my life, and I have no idea how I produced anything during that time, to be honest with you. Somehow videos came out, but with much difficulty. But I finally decided that I need my own space. And so I decided to rent a space, and the income from Patreon pays for that.
Awesome.
To
Love
have
that.
a dedicated studio where I can permanently leave all of my setup. I have quiet space to work, to think, to do things. And it has made a world of difference in my stress level, in my mental health, and all of that stuff. So I think it's really important as creators that you give yourself the right environment to work in. Like you can cheap out to a certain extent, but if that's starting to affect your quality of work, like you have to start changing things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Have you pleasure? You were going to say something earlier?
Yeah, I was gonna say investing in my piece.
Mm.
Like
Yeah, this is my
really,
piece too.
right, exactly. Yeah, I like it's different, but I really yeah, I can relate in this way of like I shared. I just moved back home to Hawaii, and you know, like being in nightlife for so long it's really beautiful and really chaotic. And I'm like, okay, you know, pandemic gave me this opportunity to see like what my body naturally does when I'm not like being fueled by like Red Bull and staying up till what God knows what hour of the morning I'm playing, you know. And I'm like, oh, okay, like I get up at around sunrise, and I'm, you know, I like had some space to like see what practices I can be in that are more generative, so that I can actually like even just like opens up what I can, you know, conceptualize, what I can dream about when I'm not like in this constant like saying yes, I'll show up to everything, you know, just that this like busyness,
Mm-hmm.
kind of just like disengaging from that, and seeing what, you know, what exists when I've separated, you know, so I'm like now living off grid and listening to birds and seeing sunrises and being like,
Oh,
oh,
that's beautiful.
what can I create now?
Love that.
Peace, no matter where you are. We all can't move places, but like just, you know, like for Pailin, it was like, you know, a studio somewhere that she's gonna get her peace. Like, you know, it
Because
might
with
be
a toddler, there is no peace. Let me tell
right,
you.
right. You know, it's
Just
like it might
nonstop.
be like a walk for you every time before you, but it's just like, yeah.
Yeah. You gotta let yourself recharge. That's really important.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I feel like the first few years for me, I was kind of like a machine because a lot of my work were commission based. So you just want to constantly make a sculpture, sell it, make a sculpture, sell it, get commission work, sell it, all that stuff. And that's when like Patreon came in, that really helped me, so I can take on more art shows and solo shows, because my Patreon income was able to pay my rent. So like in the meanwhile, I can grow like my creativity, because when you do commission work too often, it limits what you create, because you're creating what the client asks you to create. So Patreon definitely helped me with that. Also, like Pailin said, like having your own space is really important. Like I didn't realize that until I moved into a bigger apartment. I have my own room. I started at like a corner of my bedroom too, like a little desk at the corner of my bedroom, and I didn't even like realize that my sculptures keep getting bigger and bigger, like with like the room, because the room getting bigger. So like I feel like I'm just getting more creative with like the space that's like just purely my space, and I know where everything is. And also like taking a walk, like look outside, and don't get like stuck inside all the time, because you're thinking about like what got paid the bill and all that stuff. Yeah, and Patreon definitely helped that.
I love that. We're heading towards the end of our Q&A. Zoe, you want to share what your latest business investment was towards your business?
Yeah, I hired 2 people. They each work
Tell us more about
part-time,
that.
and they just they do so many things for me that I don't like doing, and also don't want to do, like don't know how to do. But really, the emphasis is on things that I don't want to do. I created a website called threaded.space, and it has a job board, and it has a fashion school database and things like that. And there's so many administrative tasks related to that I've just passed on to my VA, and she does all these little things, research things that I hate doing. And my graphic designer is designing me a new website and a new logo and stuff. And, she's sending me mock-ups, and it makes me happy to look at them. And even when I'm sitting around on my butt, like they're busy working, and it makes me feel like I can take a break without the guilt of not doing stuff. So yeah, I love them.
That's amazing. Being able to bring other people to the team is really important. And I like Sarah Rose, who's the producer of this event and is doing an amazing job in the background, by the way. Thank you. Had a really great summary in terms of the advice and investment is space, peace, joy, and support. So I think that's a really
related.
Yeah, I think it's a really great place to end on in terms of this Q&A. And also doesn't stop here. Don't forget, we can also go to the after party and have more chats with the creators and the attendees and other creators who are on the Patreon Discord. So I just want to take a moment to thank all of you incredible creators, for taking the time out of your busy days to share with us today. And I want to give a final round of applause in the chat. Woo, thanks everyone. Thanks for coming here. It's amazing. Thank you, Tina Yu. Thank you, Pailin. Thank you, Zoe Hong. Thank you, Heavy Pleasure. And before we head off to this after party, and the link is in the chat, by the way, we're going to do one last poll to see how everyone felt about this event, and then we'll head over there. The after party, while the poll goes up, I'll do a little talking, closing us out. That in the after party is going to be on Patreon's creator community and Discord. Just click on the link and join us in the chat. And please, everyone, if you could participate in the poll, it'd be really great. It's really important. This is our first Salon event, and we want to have a benchmark to keep doing better. So if you love this event, please fill it in. That'd be great. For 30 minutes and the after party, you can listen to those Diasporic Genius Beats by Heavy Pleasure. And in the general chat in the server, you can connect with our panelists and other creators. And before we go to the after party, I want to thank you all, the wonderful audience, for tuning in. And as we mentioned earlier, this is our first Pull Up Salon, so stay tuned for the next one. And from all of us here at Patreon, thank you for being here. And we can't see what you have to create next. Bye, everyone. See you at the after party.